Move on to letter number 2. Dear Building Better Leaders, I never set out to be a micromanager, but somehow I became one. Okay, sorry about that. But every time I delegate something important, I find myself hovering. I check in constantly, tweak their work, or just redo parts of it myself. I know it's exhausting for both me and my team. I want to trust them, but when mistakes happen, even small ones, I get anxious because I feel like the consequences fall on me. To make things worse, I'm not even sure if my team notices. Some seem perfectly happy to let me take over or ask me to just check in before they send. I don't know if I've created a dependency loop or if I'm just trying too hard to keep quality high. How do I stop micromanaging without letting go of accountability? And when, if ever, is okay to micromanage? I think in all what this person is trying to say is that I noticed that I'm micromanaging. I don't want to be a micromanager, but I can't help it. Please help me.
I think it's natural to want to micromanage because you care about the outcomes. And as a leader, it is your job to make sure that the outcomes are met. But where some leaders misunderstand this is that they think they need to look over someone's shoulder and to manage every single step of the process. When and I started out doing that too, the absolute control freak. I need to know who's doing what when exactly. But after a while, what I learned is that it's not about controlling the process, it's about managing the outcome and supporting people to be able to deliver that. And for me, the biggest shift was to understand that delegation is not a one way instruction giving. It's not a one way communication where I'm just giving instruction. It's actually a two-way conversation. So, how I do it is after I have given instructions as clearly as I possibly can, the task, the reason why, and the objective, and all that, I actually ask the person that I'm briefing to repeat back to me what did they hear me say. This is to check myself to see whether I have actually been clear or not. Sometimes I think I'm clear, but they don't receive it clearly. And when I'm not sure whether they understand what I'm saying or not, that's what triggers me to micromanage. But when we have this dialogue and I know that they understand what needs to be done, I also check. So how are you going to do it? Do you know how to do it, or are you going to be lost and fumbling around? So when I know that that person knows how to do it, then I can back off and say, okay, great, go, uh, go and get it done, and then check in with me when you're ready when you have something to share. So I find that that gives them that two-way communication helps me to put my own worries to sleep, and I can trust and let go, knowing that that person knows how to get the job done. Another tip that another thing that I do is that I will ask them to set mini checkpoints. So after I've made sure that they understand what they need to do, then I'll ask them, okay, when would you like to do a progress check? And let them determine it. So they will think like, oh, maybe I need to do this, do that. Maybe in 2 days' time, I can check with you part A. Okay, great. And then I just hold them to it. So this gives them the ownership and it gives them the control. And then when they reach out to me, it is on their terms. It's not on mine. So I get the updates and the progress check that I need, and they get the autonomy that they need, that they enjoy.
So what I'm hearing is that there's a possibility that the person is feeling that the letter writer is feeling that they are micromanaging. I think they need to understand that depending on the work that needs to be done or needs to be passed up in this case, there is going to be always a sense that, what I'm trying to say is that delegation here doesn't mean there is a void of monitoring. There needs to be some form of monitoring. There needs to be some form of supervision as well. It's not just delegate and then just move on, that kind of thing, right? It's not. I think that is where the biggest mistake I did previously. But understanding on delegation here means like this is the work that I have, and I'll just so-called here, you take A, you take B, you take C, and all these things. So you kind of like just delegate it out in this case, and then I'll just say that if you got any problems, look for me. Which of course they don't look for you because they don't want to come across as stupid, right? They don't come across as incompetent, so they don't look for me in this case. And when problem arises, then that's where I realized that I have over delegated, I've over empowered in this case. So this is where what you said, it's giving the process, that step by step in this case. And if I can, I think this is something which I learned from a previous guest on this show, right? And he has articulated very well in terms of the steps, right? So let me try to recall what he mentioned. So I think the first step, what you said, is to articulate the outcome clearly, but not the process. So articulate the outcome means like what is it that you want to achieve, by when, the deadlines, and also some non-negotiables as well. To say that, okay, this is the outcome, this is the timeline, and there are certain things that you can do and certain things you cannot do, to articulate some of these non-negotiables as well. But you do not articulate the process. So that's step number 2. That's when you invite them to say, now, based on whatever I just said, how would you approach it? So this, you're empowering the other person to figure out the process of how to get there based on the outcome which I've already articulated very clearly, right? So this is where the co-collaboration comes in. Then they'll talk about it. Then what you said also, which is the third step, once we have figured out how to get there to that outcome, the third step is to put in place feedback loops to say, okay, so we've agreed to go this way, to do this way. Let's agree on on a particular date, or maybe every Wednesday, or at the end of the Friday, please drop me an email. Whatever way that is helpful for them, or we agree on, so that it's not about monitoring them, but it's kind of like able to give guidance and course correction if needed. So feedback loop is important. So that's the third step. And the last step is when, let's say, everything is done, you already pass up the project or pass up the work, and then you get back the results. That is when you kind of like look into both the results as well as also the process as well, the outcome as well as the process, to say, okay, if we achieve the outcome, then we ask these questions. What did we do right? So then we can learn from it. So that's where you can talk to the person that you delegated to. Or if the outcome didn't turn out right, then you ask also, what did we not do right? Right? Can we improve on it? What kind of support you think that should have been in place in order for this to happen? So because then what happens is you're turning every opportunity, every conversation to be an opportunity for the other person to grow, to learn as well. So I think if you approach it this way, then I don't think this person will feel that they're micromanaging. I think micromanagement comes in when you're trying to micromanage the process of getting there. Like, oh, do this, cut the timon this way, fry it this way, don't fry it that way, so then they start to feel very stifled by the whole thing. But what you're trying to say is that yes, you still need to be able to cook this particular dish. These are the non-negotiables. You need to make sure that these ingredients are in there. But how you do it, let's talk about the process. So you invite them, so then you won't come across as a micromanager. This is what I learned, and I agree with this person when he was sharing with me, because I realized that I didn't like somebody or a supervisor before, or a manager before, is when they try to micromanage the process as well, to say, do this thing and let me know, show it to me whether or not you're doing it correctly. So there's a sense of judgment as well. So but if you follow what I just mentioned just now, the steps, I think it will be most helpful. It will be very empowering rather than coming across as judgmental or like being like a headmaster in this case. Any thoughts to what I just mentioned just now, Janet?
I think very much aligned to the approach of how to do empowering delegations that I often teach in my workshops. Um, and just want to share a story where recently I was mentoring this head of a department, and he is a very results driven guy. So he does not like being micromanaged because he will drive himself to do a fantastic job always. And now, as head of department, he is so frustrated because his people are not responding well to his way of leadership. And his way of leadership, his way of
Hmm.
delegating is, I brief you, I give you the job, and then I trust you. I trust you to do it your own way. But then when the
Ah,
deadline comes and I'm not getting it, then he's frustrated because he does not want to check in. But at the same time, if he doesn't check in, his ass is on the line. And then the
right, right.
interesting thing is when I spoke to the people that he was supervising, what they said was they don't think he's a good manager because he dumps work onto them. So what he thinks is, I
Hmm.
trust you, I empower you. They feel that it is dumping, and they're not getting any guidance, so they
Oh,
don't
that's
like that.
interesting.
Yeah. So we think that everyone wants to work on their own, but no, some people actually value the guidance, and they do need it so that they don't have to fumble around on their own. So when I shared
Hmm.
these
Hmm.
steps of how to delegate, then both sides are a lot happier now.
I never see it from that point of view. I think that's how when someone my boss used there's one time my boss told me that I'm over empowering, but she didn't say it in that way. She said in a more direct, pretty brutal way. But I enjoy it. I appreciated it because we have that trust. She essentially just said that I don't understand how come you have sometimes you have too much faith on your people. That you just let it do and then you don't even check their work. So this is where I realized that I have over empowered. But it depends on the work itself, right? So if the work itself is something which is not urgent, not important. I mean, everything is important, but I'm saying that maybe from that point in time it wasn't important, wasn't that particular urgent. Then okay, I don't have to check in this case. But if it's a very important client, for example, it's a very important work, I just can't say like, here, I trust you, just do it. But because there needs to be a sense of monitoring and supervision as well, especially if the work itself is extremely important or there's a crisis. So I just can't say, here, I trust you to do it. So there are some things that I need to monitor.
Sometimes there may be shortcuts that your people would appreciate because you have more experience, you've been there, you've done that, you know how things can be done in a faster way. And when we talk through this kind of how to get it done with the people, sometimes they would appreciate that.
I think even in when we invite them to share the way of the process of getting there. I think this is where it's also important for us to not just sit back and kind of like judge them to say, this is wrong. But it's more of like, okay, let's talk about this. And if they propose certain ways, then this is where we can jump in to kind of say that, okay, I've done this before. I'm not very sure it will still work. Let's talk about it. So this is where you talk about the shortcuts. So this is important as well, so that they don't fumble and waste time as well.
You know what? And something just occurred to me as we're talking about all this. I'm actually
Hmm.
learning a lot about how to delegate by working with AI. The prompt that I give to ChatGPT, that is always feedback to me as how clear am I? Am I giving enough context? What is the objective? What is the background? And is my direction clear enough? So when I see what AI produces, that tells me whether I have made it clear or not. I also practice asking AI, how will you get this done? What are the resources that you would draw on in order to get this done?
Okay, so the letter writer also did ask about when can he or she micromanage. What are the times that they can actually micromanage? So I think that's quite straightforward. For example, like you don't micromanage. You micromanage when it's a crisis. For example, yeah. I mean, this is where you have to really determine even the process and all because of experience. So, but I still think that thereafter there is still an opportunity to do a debrief. Once everything is over, then to sit down, okay, so what do you learn from this whole crisis? So I think it's still an opportunity to learn, to so-called to learn from this and not just micromanage. The other thing I can think about is that when you can micromanage is even like explaining all the processes and steps is for a new joiner. So when someone is new, they don't know what they don't know. So I think it's important to at least kind of like run through some of this. But I think it's also important that there's some nuances to it. It is not just assuming this person don't know everything. I think it's to do a quick audit to say, okay, so what do you know and what you don't know, so that I don't have to repeat myself. I think that's also important. Yeah, I think these are some of the cases. Maybe another one would be high stakes. Like for example, if this project is going to cost a lot of money, yeah. So I think it's important to sometimes just, in fact, maybe don't even pass it on to the other person to do. I think if it's really that important in itself, some things that you just got to do it yourself.
Yeah, what I add to that is just when it's something where you need to be very precise, or when you need very stringent QC standards, then you need to micromanage in the beginning so that that person can understand or can learn the process and what exactly is the best outcome to get. So like even earlier you were using the cooking analogy, right? How to cut the timun and all that. If it's like the very high class, very fine dining French cuisine, then even that you need to be very, very precise with how the vegetables are julienne. They're not cut, they are julienne or
Yes,
whatever
yes,
lah.
yes. That's got it, got it. Yeah, okay, okay. All right. So, what we are telling this letter writer? Anything else we want to add on before I do a quick recap? Yeah. So, what we're telling this letter writer is that it's good to have high standards, right? That's important, but it's also very important to know not to be overly anxious about it when it comes to delegation. So you can actually pass on, or you can actually teach, or you can actually delegate these high standards if you will follow certain processes. So what we talked about is number one is to learn how to articulate the outcome very clearly, but not the process itself. And second thing is to then invite them to co-create that process. So in that moment, that's where you can kind of like jump in and course correct if need to, and so that they don't so-called waste their time, knocking around, right? So this way you can also help them as well. And then the third part is to put in a feedback loop so that they know when to get back to you, and so that you can correct or guide or course correct if need to. And the last part is that once everything is completed, is to have a debrief session and to learn from it, from the outcome as well as also the process, what went well, what didn't go well. So that's what we can do. And also when it comes to when's the right time to micromanage as well, we also talk about that this person can consider that these are situations that he or she should micromanage. So we talk about if process is really important for that project, then you have to micromanage even that process. So in this case, we give the example of fine dining, like even cutting the ingredients, that the process needs to get it right. So that's where you have to micromanage and teach to make sure that they get it right. Of course, there are other situations like crisis, when the person is a new joiner, or like a high stakes situation. These are all so-called situations where you can actually micromanage, but there are also opportunities for you to also learn how to debrief. And there's still I still think that there's some opportunities for you to slip in some co-creation moments where you can actually invite them to co-create with you as well.